bury your 25-year-old nephew.
All right. Everybody good? Okay. Thank you, Mom.
On the early morning of July 29th, 2023, a famous rapper was shot dead at what was billed as his most expensive album release party. The night was meant to celebrate Raheem 350, Hemi Bacon's long-awaited mixtape, Taking Chances 3. But instead, it became the night his voice was silenced forever. Just after 1:51 a.m., police were called to the Jade Fox Lounge at 2021 East Edgewood Drive, Lakeland, Florida, where gunfire shattered the celebration. The parking lot, once crowded with fans and family, had turned into a crime scene only hours earlier. Raheem had been inside, surrounded by loved ones, promoting the music he hoped would change his life. But outside those doors, a fight was building that would soon spiral into deadly violence. At the center of the chaos stood 23-year-old Jamila Johnson.
They different perception on the city, but my city, you feel me, is mostly known for being like a crab in a bucket, like kind of city. Like people don't want to see other people make it out, you feel me? It's a few real people there, but you feel me? It's kind of just everybody grinding. You got people hating on you, but everybody grinding, chasing. Yeah. If you up, they hate on you, you feel me? And it's be how it be. I'm pretty sure it's like that in a lot of places.
Whose presence that night would turn celebration into tragedy. But who she was and what drove her was a story darker than anyone inside the lounge could have imagined. This is the life and death of Raheem 350 Hemi Bacon. Raheem Bacon was born on February 26, 1998 in Lakeland, Florida. He came into the world as the youngest of 5 children raised in a home where love was present, but hardship was never far away. His mother, Kenny Crawford, worked tirelessly to hold the family together. Raising her children largely on her own life was not easy, but for Kenny, every sacrifice was worth it if it meant her kids had a shot at a better future. For Raheem, family was everything.
Man, some advice I want to share to the youth is be you. Don't try to be like your favorite rapper. Don't try to be like your favorite actor. Don't try to be like nobody. Be you. Whatever you like, you do. Whatever you want to do, you do. You feel me? Chase your dreams. Don't let nobody tell you different. It's just like that, though.
Yeah.
I feel like nobody be telling them that these days, you feel me? But that's definitely what they need to.
Before he was ever known as a rapper, before his name carried weight in Florida's music scene, he was simply a son and a younger brother. His older brother, Dwayne Bacon, chased his own dreams on the basketball court, eventually making it to the NBA. While Dwayne's success made headlines, Raheem's story was still unfolding quietly in Lakeland, shaped by the same streets, the same struggles, and the same determination. But even as a boy, Raheem had something different about him. He was funny, full of energy, and deeply protective of the people he loved. Friends remembered his smile, his lightheartedness, and his ability to draw people in. Man, some. Yet beneath that charm was a young man who carried the weight of wanting more for himself and more for his family. And in the city where opportunity was scarce, that hunger mattered. Little did anyone know that hunger would soon push Raheem into the spotlight. At Lake Gibson High School, Raheem began to come into his own. He played varsity basketball, following in his brother's footsteps. In some ways, though, the game never defined him completely. He graduated with the class of 2016, carrying with him the pride of his family and the hope of doing something bigger. Basketball gave him structure and a sense of teamwork, but music was where his soul found its voice. Still, life demanded responsibility. Just days after turning 18, Raheem became a father. His daughter was born at a time when most of his classmates were worrying about college applications or prom plans. Suddenly, Raheem's future was no longer just about him. Later, a son would follow to those closest to him. It was clear his kids became his reason for pushing harder, his motivation to turn dreams into reality. Though no marriage records have ever been confirmed, what is certain is that his children were at the center of his world. But responsibility also came with risk. Lakeland was a place of pride, but also of pressure. Raheem himself once described it as a crab in a bucket city, a place where people didn't always want to see others succeed. Success could attract envy, and envy could become dangerous. A. His mother, determined to protect him, insisted he move to Tallahassee after high school. She wanted him away from the temptations and dangers of his hometown. He enrolled in community college, tried to focus on a new environment, and met people who would later support his music, yet even distance couldn't erase the struggles of a young man trying to balance dreams with reality. Between 2017 and 2019, Raheem had run-ins with the law, including charges related to drugs and guns. He spent time in Leon County experiences that would later shape the urgency in his music. For him, it was a wake-up call. He knew what it was like to lose freedom, and he never wanted to go back. But Raheem wasn't defined by his mistakes. He came home with renewed focus, ready to channel his energy into music, and this is where 350 he was born. As a rapper, Raheem found his lane quickly. His stage name carried weight, blending street grit with ambition. On YouTube, his music began to gain traction with tracks like Water, pulling in hundreds of thousands of views. His sound was described as both melodic and raw, a mix of pain and perseverance. He rapped about love, loss, violence, and survival, all pulled from real experiences. By 2021, his momentum paid off. Raheem signed a deal with Motown Records, a dream for any aspiring artist. That December, he released his project, Major League. And suddenly his name was circulating beyond Lakeland. Articles and interviews followed. Blue Magazine profiled him in April 2023, calling his style powerful melodies and street anthems. In that same interview, Raheem spoke about his desire to represent his city and create opportunities for other artists. Being at the forefront of my city, it's on me to keep the light shining. His words carried weight because they reflected not just ambition, but responsibility. He wasn't just rapping for himself. He wanted to open doors for others, to give Lakeland a voice in the larger music scene. And for fans who had followed his rise, his success felt like theirs too. But ambition, especially in a city like Lakeland, could be a double-edged sword, because while he was carving a name for himself, shadows lingered around him. By July 28, 2023, he was celebrating a major milestone, the release of his latest mixtape, Taking Chances 3, with tracks titled Dangerous Love and Gunshots. The project carried the themes that defined his artistry to mark the moment he hosted a release party at Jade Fox Lounge in the Highlands Plaza. He promoted the event heavily on social media, promising an upscale celebrity-filled night. Even his brother Dwayne Bacon was set to appear for Raheem. This was more than a party. It was a declaration that he had arrived. But celebration and tragedy can sit closer together than anyone realizes, lurking in that same lounge. On the night of the release party was a woman whose presence that night would tilt the night toward violence. Her name was Jamila Johnson, a 23-year-old woman who at first glance might have seemed like anyone else in the crowd that night to those passing by. She didn't stand out as someone who would bring harm. She looked like another young face in a city filled with them, someone blending into the music, the laughter, and the flashing lights of celebration. But her reputation told a different story. Hidden beneath the surface was a dark history of arrests, fights, and reckless choices that would soon foreshadow the violence she was about to unleash at just 23. She had already built a reputation as someone you didn't want to cross. People who knew her described her as quick-tempered, prone to fights, and unafraid to use force when words weren't enough. She carried herself with a kind of restless energy, like trouble wasn't just around her, but inside her. Johnson grew up in Polk County, Florida, an area where hardship and opportunity often clashed. For some, that environment was a reason to rise above. But for Jamila, it became a breeding ground for conflict. While others tried to escape trouble, she seemed to run headfirst into it, and the court system had the paperwork to prove it. Her first serious brush with the law came in 2018 when she was barely 20. Police arrested her for improperly carrying a concealed weapon. The charge was more than just a technical violation. It raised the unsettling question of why such a young woman felt the need to arm herself illegally. Officers noted she had no permit, no legal clearance, and no valid reason. It was the first clear sign of how reckless she was willing to be. Not long after, in 2019, her name reappeared in arrest logs, this time for marijuana possession on its own. Some might have dismissed it as minor, but for Johnson, it added to a growing record of disregard for the law. It wasn't just one mistake, it was another step in a pattern. Then came the charges that showed just how volatile she could be. Records describe moments when she resisted arrest, refusing to comply with officers. Instead of de-escalating, she pushed back, testing the limits of authority and showing she wasn't afraid of confrontation. On another occasion, she was picked up for fighting in public, dragging her personal chaos into the open where bystanders couldn't avoid it. By 2020 and 2021, these incidents had given her a clear reputation in Polk County. A young woman already comfortable with violence, already unafraid of challenging authority, and already walking the line between recklessness and danger. These weren't isolated mistakes. They formed a timeline, a steady climb toward the inevitable. Each arrest, each confrontation, each charge was like a warning shot, but those warnings went unheeded. And so, despite her history, Jamila still found herself walking freely into Jade Fox Lounge on the night of July 28, 2023. Arm in arm with her mother, 48-year-old Regina Orr. They weren't guests of honor, but they weren't strangers to conflict either. What no one inside realized was that this night meant to mark Raheem 350. He's Bacon's proudest moment was about to be consumed by Jamila's violent tendencies. From the moment Jamila and her mother went into the lounge, conflict already came rushing. They didn't arrive quietly. Just after 12:30 a.m., there was already friction at the entrance. They tried slipping in without paying the cover charge, and when confronted, their frustration boiled over. This led to a heated back-and-forth argument about them paying. Jamila and Regina were adamant to not pay, but as the argument extended, they eventually caved and handed the money to everyone else. It seemed like a small hiccup in the night, but for Raheem's family, it was the first sign of what was coming. Inside the club, the energy was still alive. Friends were taking pictures, drinks were being poured, and Raheem's music filled the room. But by 1:30 a.m., something began to shift. Security guards started paying closer attention to the crowd, sensing that the good vibes were slipping away. Then, at 1:35 a.m., everything fell apart. In the middle of the lounge, a Regina Orr suddenly hit Raheem's mother, Kenny Crawford. That single punch set off an explosion. Screams cut through the music, fists started flying, and the release party turned into a fight almost instantly. The tension didn't stay inside for long. It burst out the doors by 1:40 a.m. The fight spilled into the parking lot. Dozens of people rushed outside. Their shouting, echoing in the sticky floor at night. 2 off-duty Lakeland police officers already posted outside for security, tried to calm the chaos, but the crowd was too angry, too wild. The scene was growing more dangerous by the second, and then came the sound that froze. Everyone at 1:51 a.m., the first gunshot ripped through the night. Raheem pulled out a 9mm pistol and fired. The bullet struck Regina Orr, knocking her down hard onto the asphalt. In an instant, the party collapsed into pure panic. People screamed, ducked, and scattered in every direction. But this was only the beginning of the nightmare, seeing her mother bleeding on the ground. 23-year-old Jamila Johnson pulled a .40 caliber Glock 27, a gun that had been reported stolen all the way back in 2015. Without a second of hesitation, she aimed at Raheem and fired. The bullets cut through the chaos, hitting him as he tried to run. Witnesses watched in shock as he stumbled, collapsed near a parked car, and struggled to breathe while blood poured onto the pavement. The scene now had 2 victims, and it was far from over. One man, Isaac Harris, had just pulled into the lot. He saw Raheem collapse in front of his car and knew he couldn't just stand there throwing his door open. Harris dragged the wounded rapper inside and sped away, blowing through red lights as he raced to Lakeland Regional Health Medical Center, though. "You were parked right here?" "Yeah, I was parked right here." Meanwhile, chaos that Jade Fox kept unraveling. Sirens blared as paramedics rushed to help Regina Orr, lifting her into an ambulance. Police chased Johnson as she tried to run from the scene in desperation. She tossed the Glock away, letting it hit the pavement. The gun was there in plain sight, but Raheem's weapon was not. His 9mm had vanished in the confusion. Only the shell casings left behind proved it had been fired, and that missing weapon would raise troubling questions. Later at the hospital, Doctors worked frantically over Raheem's body. Harris's desperate drive hadn't been enough. The bullets had done too much damage. Within minutes of arriving, Raheem 350, Hemi Bacon, was pronounced dead. He was just 25 years old. His biggest night had ended with flashing lights, blood on the pavement, and silence in the hospital room. But the most chilling revelations about what happened that night at Jade Fox Lounge had not yet been uncovered. When the shooting ended, the parking lot at Jade Fox Lounge was no longer a party. It was a crime scene. Police secured the area, pushing back the crowd and marking evidence on the ground. Officers collected the .40 caliber Glock 27 that Jamila Johnson had dropped, but Raheem's own weapon, the 9mm pistol, was nowhere to be found. All they had were the shell casings that proved it had been fired, and that missing weapon would shape everything that followed. Detectives moved fast. They interviewed people who stayed behind, piecing together the story. Witnesses confirmed that Raheem pulled his gun first and shot Regina Orr, Jamila's Mother Johnson, then fired back at Raheem, shooting to protect her mother. With those facts on the table, prosecutors believed Johnson's actions could be legally seen as self-defense, and that changed everything. By August 21, 2023, prosecutors announced their decision. Johnson would not face a murder charge. Instead, she was formally charged with carrying a concealed firearm and tampering with evidence after tossing the Glock to the ground while trying to flee for prosecutors. That was where the case ended. Johnson shot because her mother had already been wounded, but to Raheem's family and fans, that decision felt hollow. His loved ones couldn't understand how a young man on the rise, just 25 years old, could be gunned down, and yet no one would be held directly responsible for his death on social media. His supporters demanded answers. Why had Raheem's gun disappeared? Who had taken it from the scene? And if it had been found, would the outcome of the case have been any different? Because even with charges filed, the missing weapon left a hole in the story. Police knew Raheem's 9mm was there. The shell casings on the ground proved it, but the weapon itself was gone, taken in the chaos. And whoever carried it away never came forward. That one missing piece left lingering doubts. Was it removed to protect Raheem's reputation, or was it evidence that might have altered the case completely? The truth may never be known, and then came the final word. On September 12, 2023, the state attorney's office officially announced that no homicide charges would be filed against Johnson. The case was closed on the grounds of self-defense. The ruling confirmed what prosecutors had already signaled. Weeks earlier, Raheem fired first, and Johnson responded to protect her mother. Legally, the matter was settled, but in the court of public opinion, the wounds were still wide open. In the days after his death, Lakeland came together to mourn Raheem 350. Bacon was laid to rest in his hometown, surrounded by family, friends, and fans who struggled to make sense of his sudden loss. His brother Dwayne Bacon, once cheered in NBA arenas, now stood in grief beside their mother, carrying the weight of a tragedy no parent should face. At just 25 years old, Raheem's story had ended before it could reach its full promise. The aftermath left more than unanswered questions. It left a hole in Lakeland's heart. Raheem had been signed to Motown, making music that carried both pain and hope, and trying to shine a light on his city's talent. His fans believed he was only getting started. His children lost a father, his family lost a son, and the city lost an artist who wanted to carry them with him. The missing gun, the charges reduced to evidence, tampering and carrying. Without a permit, none of it felt like justice. For many, it felt like the system had failed once again. But even in death, Raheem's music lives on, echoing the promise of a future that should have been. This is the life and death of Raheem 350 Hemi. What do you think about the prosecutor's decision? Was it truly self-defense, or was justice denied? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this story important, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. More stories like this deserve to be told, and more voices like Raheem's never deserve to be forgotten.